Hi! Whoa, crazy. A scripted video essay about a video game? What are you, a white guy in his mid-20s? I know, it's different, and you probably missed the guy with the red subtitles who said all those horribly racially charged obscenities, but I would like to set the record straight that I've always been content-pilled. I'm about to show you deep lightning lore that only people who were around at the time were able to witness. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh Sonic, you've been through so much. You've been through some great games.
Have you ever played a game that you know is going to become an instant classic the moment you lay hands? Sonic Forces is not a very good game. Coming off from Sonic Mania.
Fucked up, right? Point is, I've always wanted to put my thoughts together on games that I have a lot of thoughts about. I have not been able to stop thinking about Yakuza Like a Dragon since I beat it. How about a little history lesson, huh? The Yakuza franchise, Japanese GTA in layman's terms, shadier Shenmue in losers' terms. Toshihiro Nagoshi's brainchild, Yakuza was both a game series you expect from him and didn't at the same time. With both Shenmue and Super Monkey Ball under his belt, his next game could either be Manslaughter Detective or Franco's Funky Day, and no one would really give a shit either way. Funnily enough, Nagoshi was actually dissatisfied with how monumental of a project Shenmue turned out to be in its development, which is pretty funny comparing that to how the Yakuza series turned out. Released all the way back in September of 2006, Yakuza 1, believe it or not, was a pretty standard story-focused PS2 beat-em-up. The classic karaoke and general weirdness the public have come to know the Yakuza franchise for didn't really become commonplace until Yakuza 3 in 2009. The game was critically acclaimed in Japan for its cinematic and gritty story, and it got some pretty good reviews over here in the West. Despite it doing well in reviews, the lack of enthusiasm for Yakuza in the West led to some of the games, mainly spin-offs, being trapped in what I like to call localization hell. It also more indirectly led to the games not getting an English dub until the release of Like a Dragon. Rest in peace, Mark Hamill Goro Majima. To the Matt Mercer pit you go. The franchise itself had a pretty passionate cult following around the release of Yakuza 5 in 2012, when the popularity of the series skyrocketed with Yakuza 0 in 2015, nearly quadrupling the sales compared to its predecessor. Who would have guessed that having a prequel game to a franchise with 5 massive titles would be a good idea? Also, yes, this is the game with the funny Dame Dane in it. At least, the one where the footage for that one video was taken from. Funnily enough, the Bakami timing was one of the real reasons behind the total soar in popularity for the Yakuza franchise in the West, doing rounds around the summer of 2020. I'll never forget when my friend first introduced me to the franchise, my first question was, when can I do the funny karaoke? If by nothing but divine intervention, 2020 also saw the release of Yakuza Like a Dragon, only coincidentally striking while the iron was hot. Like a Dragon was a uniquely strange game in the franchise, however. Fans of the series knew that Yakuza 6 marked the end of beloved protagonist Kiryu's story, so many were waiting to see the new protagonist in a mainline game. Hardcore fans of the franchise had already met New Series protagonist Ichiban Kasuga in a Japanese-only online card game. I'm reading that right. But it would take 3 years since Yakuza 6 for a teaser trailer for the next installment in the franchise to come out. At last, fans finally got to see the new game and... What? What? The fuck? As a funny little April Fool's prank, the development team decided it would be pretty funny to make a fake teaser trailer for their famous real-time beat-em-up franchise and turn it into an RPG. What wasn't so funny though was the amount of support for a JRPG Yakuza game. People wanted this, and they wanted it bad. Lo and behold, a year and a half later, Yakuza Like a Dragon is released to worldwide critical acclaim with a fat 84 on Metacritic and more 9 out of 10s than you can shake a baseball bat at. So, what gives? What's so good about it? Was a switch to a completely different genre really that good? Is this a good direction for the Yakuza franchise? I guess that's what I'm here for, isn't it? So, booting up the game. Ah! Jesus fucking Christ. Booting up the game, having only played Yakuza 0 and Kiwami before this, there was almost a disappointment right out of the gate. Those two games had really cool cinematic openings with sick music, and granted, the last 3 games before Like a Dragon also didn't have them, but, you know, it would have been nice to see. Yeah, real Yakuza use a gamepad. This is all shit we've learned in the 1st grade. Actually playing the video game, you get a lot of story. Not that this is a bad thing, obviously. Anyone familiar with the franchise knows that these games love their story, but it is a major part of the game that I figured I should at least mention. The story is... it's a lot. Down to its essentials, the plot of Like a Dragon is a story about found family and finding humanity in darkness. I mean, for fuck's sake, that's even the name of the title screen music. It'd be like having a sticky note on the front of The Great Gatsby that says "The American Dream is cringe." Best part is, the story feels like it was written around the game being a JRPG, with the story and its themes lending themselves extremely well to the basic concept of a JRPG party. It almost makes you wonder if the April Fool's video was a prank at all and not just a teaser for the game itself. At its core, there's only one reason why Like a Dragon is a JRPG story-wise, and it all comes down to the man of the hour. Surprisingly enough, the key characteristic of the main character in this serious crime drama is that he's a gamer. He's like super into Dragon Quest and he'll never let you forget it. I mean, look at his outfit. What a dork, I love him. Ichiban is what I wish gamer adjacent characters were written like more often. Most of the time, writers just seem to fumble the bag. On a spectrum, Ichiban is written well, Futaba Sakura of Persona 5 is written poorly, and Chiaki Nanami of Danganronpa 2 is somewhere in the middle. Futaba is written poorly because her entire personality is based around how much of a nerd she is. You will never catch a line of dialogue that isn't like, wow, this totally reminds me of Zelda. Like, shut up! Shut the fuck up, we get it! God. Ichiban, on the other hand, is written well because 1, he's like 40 years old, and 2, the times where he does bring up Dragon Quest are thematically appropriate and not annoying. He's a dork like Futaba, sure, but he's a lovable one. The instance that comes to mind is when he's hanging out with Nanba, a homeless guy who's a major player in the story, but how his dream is to be a hero, just like the ones in Dragon Quest. Yeah, it's tacky, yeah, it's nerdy, but it's an interaction that really does give his character depth, and shows that deep down, he's just a guy trying to do his best in the world, and video games help him feel like he can actually be a hero. Having a character in a video game be a better person because they play video games is something I've never really seen before, and it's refreshing not having a gamer character be a total loser weirdo. Chiaki is a strange middle ground between the two because she's both annoying with her references and dorky in a nice way, but this is not a video about Danganronpa, and I would like to keep some of my credibility. Aside from being a gamer, Ichiban thrives off being a character with nothing left to lose. The main catalyst of the story is him being shot in the chest by the one man he trusts the most and being left to rot in a homeless camp, where a couple of the major parts of the story take place. The homeless camp in Ijincho, the city Like a Dragon takes place in, is the perfect metaphor for how this game deals with finding humanity in darkness. The way Ijincho is laid out could not be a more thinly veiled metaphor if it tried. It's a large city, it's fucking immense compared to the cities tackled previously in the franchise, and it's divided in the middle by a seemingly inconspicuous train track. This track, however, literally divides the higher and lower classes of the city. The north of Ijincho houses nice and clean commodities like parks, batting centers, golf centers, and a nice and commercialized Chinatown. The south of Ijincho, however, houses the less fortunate population of the city, with the landmark homeless camp, a bar district, a red light district, and a much more run-down Koreatown compared to its counterpart in the north. However, Like a Dragon makes the south of Ijincho your home. The homeless camp is where we spent a lot of time early on in the story, really getting to know the people of the place and sympathizing with their struggles. There's a really great moment really early on where Ichiban goes like, hey, why don't we all just go get jobs? and Nanba has to stop him to explain that some of us just don't have the option to go back to society due to reasons outside of our control. For some of us, it's less dangerous to stay here. It's a really great moment, especially in such a big AAA game like this, that shows that being in an unfortunate situation is never black or white. Sometimes there are systemic issues that keep the homeless, and trying to reintegrate back into society is a fruitless endeavor for many of them, really humanizing the people that you're around. Not even to mention the shockingly good portrayal of sex workers as, real human beings that are just trying to provide for their loved ones. It's really rare to see a game that's this popular tackle such big topics with a real nuance and create a narrative that has a meaningful message.
Too much thoughtful analysis. Need joke now. Too much thoughtful analysis.
My life.
Need joke now.
Speaking of the less fortunate in Ijincho, your party members! Yay! The party members in Like a Dragon really feel like a tight-knit family by the end of the game. With a tumor. With Ichiban being a man with nothing to his name, the only thing he has is the heart he wears on his sleeve. Or his hair, if you want to be thick about it. The party members in the game also fit the humanity and darkness narrative, with them being as follows. A nurse turned homeless after he took the fall for a co-worker selling medicine in the black market. A former detective who got fired for doing his fucking job. A hostess at a bar with broken relationships with her family. A body double for a prolific leader of the Chinese mafia in Japan. An actual prolific leader of the Chinese mafia in Japan. And a tumor. Weirdly enough, Eri here is an optional party member in this game, which is why I'm so hesitant to say anything about her. She fits the story, no doubt, being the heir to a thriving company that gets fucked over by multi-millionaire moguls in Ijincho, but the fact that she's an optional party member tied to a minigame, that I'll get to later, really gives her as a character. She doesn't appear in any cutscenes, at all. Not a single one. I understand why this was done, obviously, but at that point I'd rather just not have her there at all. Sure, she shows up in these party chats you can have around town where your party talks about random shit they see on the streets, but it's not really enough to make up for the fact she doesn't have a role in the story. Either way, what's a JRPG party without a JRPG? How does the game play? Was the Switch worth it? Sure. Listen, I'm biased. I like a good RPG every once in a while, and I do believe that this game works very well despite it being the developer's first turn-based RPG that became one very late into development. Not to say it doesn't have its issues, though. Balancing, or as I like to call it, the coward's game design principle. Like a Dragon is, for better or for worse, not a balanced RPG. At all. I mean, for fuck's sake, Jungi Han has an attack that costs pennies worth of MP and does comparable damage to Ichiban's strongest special attack. Who balanced this? FromSoft? Honestly, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'd much rather the player be overpowered compared to the enemy, especially in an RPG, so I personally don't take any issue with this. A really great thing the Battles of Like a Dragon do is implement a little bit of that real-time action and space awareness from previous Yakuza games. It's not like Final Fantasy where you can just attack whoever whenever. Your attacks can get blocked by enemies if you're not careful, and attacking an enemy while they're down guarantees a crit on them. Yeah, it's not a lot, but it's more hands-on than fucking Dragon Quest, I guess. Sorry, Ichiban. The main gimmick of the RPG section of the game, though, is the job system. The job system isn't something entirely new, obviously, with the term being coined as far back as Final Fantasy I for the NES, back when it was lead in the water instead of microplastics. Though instead of jobs being things like Black Mage or a fighter, they're literal, real jobs, like a foreman or a card dealer. All of them fit pretty well to establish RPG archetypes, with some jobs filling mage roles, healer roles, tank roles, you know how it is. Although, a problem that I have with this system is that the jobs are not built equal. The way the game is that you can just change jobs whenever, with your character level always staying constant but your job level being tied to the job itself. In concept, this encourages mixing and matching jobs with different party members, but there's always one job that's way better than the others for a certain character. Adachi has a high base defense stat, so he's fit to be a tank. Sayako has high healing, so she's fit to be a healer. Nanba has high magic, so he's fit to be a mage. I mean, the game even encourages this with some flavor text. Some of the default jobs are the best jobs for given characters too, with Ichiban's hero job being a completely indispensable all-rounder, and Jungi Han's having the most overpowered skills in the game for no reason. Although, I'd be the first to admit it'd be really annoying to have to switch jobs constantly to play the game effectively. It'd be like having a second team in Pokemon to cover all your bases. Speaking of Pokemon, the Pokedex. No, I'm not kidding, this game has a Pokedex. Or a Suji Dex if you want to call it by its maiden name. The variety of enemies here really took me by surprise for a Yakuza game, especially off the heels of Yakuza 0 and Kiwami, where all the enemies are just, you know, the Yakuza. Thugs, punks, hooligans, delinquents, nothing out of place in a crime-ridden setting. In this game, I don't even know what the fuck I'm looking at half the time. What the hell is this? Imp... Genghis? The weirdest part is, in lore, these are just normal dudes that transform into these weirdos in the eyes of Ichiban. Thank you, Ichiban Kasuga, for being an icon for mental health everywhere.
Did you see those guys freaking transform? Huh? What are you raving about?
Aside from the JRPG part of the game, Like a Dragon has all of the Yakuza staples fans of the series have come to know and love. Karaoke, batting cages, golf, darts, arcade games, shogi, mahjong, real estate, movie, watching, can collecting, dragon cart, what the hell? I suppose it's best to take these one by one. The amount of quality and quantity to these minigames is a little upsetting, to be honest. What, did they lace the fucking keyboard at Sega with crack? The staple Yakuza minigames like karaoke and golf are about the same as they've ever been, but, you know, why fix something that's not broken? Sometimes, all we need is a little Adachi machine gun kiss in our lives. I'll show you paradise tonight. Not just one kiss, not two kisses, not 100. I've got a full clip of love for you, baby. Yes! Yes, Adachi! In terms of arcade games, Yakuza has always been fond of paying tribute to Sega's old catalog of arcade games. It'd be weird if they stopped 8 games in. Some pretty good classics like Outrun and Virtua Fighter 2. They even included the entirety of the arcade version of Virtua Fighter 5, all with seemingly spotless emulation as far as I can tell. Things like Mahjong and Shogi are there, if you're into that sort of thing. God knows I don't know how to play them though. Don't fuck with us, Yakuza fans. We don't know how to play Mahjong. The real interesting stuff lies in the new minigames, starting out with Can't Quest. It's a fine romp, basically a slightly more complicated version of Pac-Man, where the points you earn in-game can be exchanged for goods and services from the Resident Evil 4 shopkeeper. You can buy everything from pocket tissues to the Persona 5 soundtrack, both about equal in quality. There's the movie theater minigame, all about keeping Ichiban awake during the movies by doing this esoteric minigame about keeping the Remrams away from him. Serious crime drama. There's Dragon Kart, a surprisingly solid kart racer tucked away in the literal farthest corner of Ijincho. It controls pretty well, and the items are funny, replacing classic shells and bananas with fucking Gatling guns and heat-seeking missiles. Pretty standard kart racing stuff, just... It's weird that this is in the game, right? Was the game not big enough? If that wasn't enough, the real estate minigame is a contender for the longest minigame in the franchise so far. Remember Eri from earlier? The asterisk of your party? The conceit of this minigame is a complete storyline surrounding her. I still don't think it makes up for her not being a part of the main story, but, you know, it's something. Basically, she's the heir to a company her grandpa owned that was ran to the ground because of the rich assholes that control the entire economy of Ijincho. So it's up to you to pull Ichiban up by his bootstraps by making him the leader of this company and taking it to the #1 spot in the city. The minigame is a lot of... Yeah, it's not very fun. You get a lot of money. There's this mini game where you have to fight the shareholders, which is obtruse and it's weird, but it's fun, I guess. I don't like this one. It's boring and weird, and the story isn't all that engaging, and I'd rather just lose playing shogi again. The real thing being hung over the head of this game, though, is the legacy of its 7 predecessors. Does this game pass the torch from Kiryu to Ichiban, and does it do it well? Well, I think so. You can take nuanced media literacy takes from me. Miss 350 hours on Bloons Tower Defense 6. Kiryu, at least in the couple games I played, was a lone wolf type character. He's a strong man on his own, dealing with trauma in his own way and barely showing emotion until the climaxes of his games. Usually in the form of a fist. This didn't make him a bad character, of course, as to not be a deadbeat asshole, he only does what he does for the sake of others. Similarly, Ichiban is a very selfless character. The story only moves forward because he wants to help Namba, then Adachi, then Saeko, so on and so forth. The only difference is that Ichiban is more than willing to put all his cards on the table. He's a very emotional character, needing the shoulders of his party to lean on when things get hard, only to come back stronger. I mean, there's a point in the game where Ichiban loses his cool and almost fucking beats a man to death, only to be stopped by Kiryu, if that's not literal enough. There's also this great scene where Kiryu is introduced into the story, and although the scene itself has almost no plot relevance, he tells Ichiban and his party to keep moving forward while he stays and protects the back. It's almost too literal, but it's nice. I also like that the music switches from the rock-heavy style of the older Yakuza games to the more electronic-heavy sounds of the Like a Dragon soundtrack. It's cute. So, $1,000,000 question. Is Yakuza Like a Dragon a good direction for the franchise? I'd have to bargain for 80 hours of my life back if I said no, so yeah, I think so. The Yakuza series is almost notorious for being silly and over the top, and the JRPG aspect lends itself extremely well to these insane scenarios, all while the writing team still got it. This game gave me faith in AAA games again. Seeing a studio as big as this handle topics like homelessness and sex work while also delivering such a fun RPG experience was really a sight to behold. Obviously, I'd like for them to tweak the RPG mechanics a bit more, but beggars can't be choosers, I guess. I really can't wait for what Yakuza 8 has to offer, and I really want to see what they do with this world and these characters they've crafted.
Too much thoughtful analysis. Need joke now.
You know, I've never actually found out what happens if I just don't do that.